Well, shalom, everybody, again. I've been discriminated against by the government. I wanted to bring this out and to explain a little bit about why we have these wars and rumors of wars. And this here picture comes from The Watchman. I highly recommend you watch his site. When he sends out, and it's most every day, I just kind of skip to where it brings out the news events, and then he'll get into areas where he gets preaching, bringing out scripture mostly, but sometimes he'll get to preaching about the rapture, things of that sort, which I don't agree with. But then he brings out a lot of the most current news as he sees pertaining toward prophecy. And there's something I want to show you, the reason why we have these wars and rumors of wars. And I brought this out before. It's once in a video I had entitled Why I Don't Vote. Okay, please take a look up that video and you'll see exactly why I don't vote for, and I'll just say, those that are not of the kingdom that is coming right now. I'll let the blind lead the blind, let them sell their guns and their drugs and everything when they get elected in these higher offices. That's what it's all about, is the drugs and the weapons, the machinery for war. That's what everything is about. And I was part of this. See, I volunteered 3 years of my life, and then after that there's an extension of 5 years once you are discharged honorably. They call you back at any time within 5 years to go fight a war after your discharge. But the thing is, though I am a veteran, I volunteered. I was not, I wasn't picked in a lot to go in. There was none of this going on. I chose to go serve our country because at one time I believed in it. I really did. I didn't know that it was Ronald McDonald land, where instead of selling Happy Meals, you're selling nuclear weapons or other weapons of mass destruction and vehicles to carry it around upon, to take over people's oils and their resources and things of this sort and put our brothers and sisters' lives at risk. It wasn't like that when I was in. I didn't see it because these things weren't publicized. They weren't known. It talks about in the last days the knowledge would increase, and now we see these things. But I volunteered for 3 years, and I was in Germany every day in my barracks on Fort Ernst Ludwig Kaserne. I was on the second floor of the barracks I was in, and from my window I could see Frankenstein's castle every night. Or every day, actually. At night it was pretty dark most of the time, but I could see it every day out my window. And I thought that was pretty cool. But I also had my blood spilled on the soil of Germany while I was in the military. I did have blood spilled on foreign soil, but yet I don't qualify for certain things, and that's what I want you to see here. I have a wonderful cousin. His name is Timmy, and he has served in the military. He is no longer in it. He became disabled. He was in the war, the recent ones, and he believed fully that I'd be able to qualify for the veterans pension because I am 100% disabled, non-service connected, of course. But anyway, it says here, this is the qualifications. It says generally a veteran must have at least 90 days of active duty service with at least 1 day during a wartime period to qualify for a VA pension. Now, why would that be? I gave 8 years of my life. 3 of it I served actively. The other 5 were inactive, but at any time they could have called me back if an arms deal or something wasn't going through like they wanted and decided they had to send me off to war, or, whether they wanted to send us out to gather up some more poppy fields for those in higher office of McDonald land here. They could have called me back in at any time, but because I didn't spend 1 day, like there's many that can qualify for this. Say a war broke out and it was a fella's last day on active duty. And the war broke out the day he was sitting behind a desk in California doing paperwork, not even hardly knowing the war started to begin with. Well, it's raging on in a different country. Well, that man gets discharged the next day or whatever, if they let him go for whatever reason in a wartime situation. And, you know, he qualifies because he was stateside while wars were raging elsewhere, but he can qualify because he spent one day during a wartime situation. And I can't, even though I gave 3 years of my life actively. 5 years after that, I could be called back at any time, and I am totally and permanently disabled, yet I don't qualify for this. Down here it even shows, it says a VA pension may provide income to make life more secure for veterans. Hey, I made life secure for all Americans, didn't I? You know, I volunteered. It said in their loved ones, pension is a needs-based benefit for wartime veterans. One day is all you have to spend in a wartime situation securing guns and arms deals and drug deals and stuff that are going to fruit in the future. But with limited or no income, that's me, who are age 65 or older, which I'm not, or who have permanent and total non-service connected disability. Well, that's what I've got, non-service disability. But I could have had a service disability had they not gypped me out of it. I got my colon cancer started while I was in the military because of the food they was feeding me and other experiments I believe they sent me out into. I was always out in the field, not always, but anytime our office was called to send somebody out, I was the lowest rank, so I went out to the field. And I love camping and such, you know, but they would send me off on errands in a Jeep, and they'd blow up these canisters around, you know, for the war games, whatever, that they knew I was going to be driving through. So I believe I was an experiment, and I ended up with colon cancer. Had a faith healing, and the doctor, the VA sorcerer that only gave me 6.5 weeks to live, spell on me, you know, and I rebuked the spell at that time, let him know that it wasn't up to him to tell me when I was going to live or die. But anyway, it brings us all to this here, wars and rumors of wars, and I've said it in many different videos. And like I say, take a look at the one that I speak and say why I don't vote or something like that. Maybe I'll leave the link down here for it. Why I don't vote video, and you can find out, you know, a little bit more of the way that I look at things that are taking place on this earth. Please pay close attention to what's being said, and I'll rewind it up a little bit to play again. But anyway, here with the VA pension, what I did was I went over here to the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, and I wrote them this here. Oh, I made this video already. I had to delete it because I had scrolled down on it, and it revealed a lot of my personal information that I don't want anybody to hijack my life with, because it's government and they have to look at my records. I have to give out certain information. And I accidentally showed it without thinking until I was going through there. I said, boy, you're dumb, man. Now you got to delete the video and start again. Anyway, what my question is to these people, because they want to discriminate against me, I'm saying, why as a vet was honorably discharged during peace times, am I excluded from the VFW as well as the pension? Was it my fault we weren't at war? I volunteered and I was treated like shit, but was honorably discharged. Why am I discriminated against? Okay, so they told me to click down at the bottom of this. I'm not going to go down there again. So I clicked on it to submit it, and it says don't re-click. It takes up to 25 seconds to submit this form to the proper place it's being routed to here. Well, that was before I made the last video, which was over 20 minutes. This one will be much shorter. And it was a couple hours before I was working on this before I seen this. So after I seen this, I was like getting a little bit antsy to bring something to y'all so you can see some of the things that I see and then some of the things I hear that most others don't even recognize. They don't hear it, it doesn't click, it doesn't register. They just think that McDonald's land is doing great for them. And they can vote, for whatever other drug dealer and arms dealer they want in office to determine whether we go to wars or not, depending on how much business they get. You get to vote for them. Me, I'm a sojourner on this earth, and I'm waiting for our kingdom to come. I'm just a pilgrim here. But as a pilgrim, I want to show you, even as a watchman, one of the 144,000 even, what these wars and rumors of wars are over. And it's not the only reason, but it's a major reason. Listen to what is said. And I bring this for educational purposes only. Well, not only. I bring it also to endorse the watchman. I don't agree on his rapture and this and that and the other thing. There's a lot of teachings I do not agree with, though there's scriptures in there. It's just used wrong sometimes. But as far as the news and such that he brings out, outstanding. And he brings it out about every day. So with that, I want you to please listen to what's being said here very carefully.
As the impeachment hearings were underway on Capitol Hill, President Trump was meeting with Turkey's president at the White House. And CBS News has confirmed that there was a surprise confrontation when Turkey's president, that's President Erdogan, met with Mr. Trump and others in the Oval Office. Paula Reed is at the White House. So, Paula, good morning. What's this all about?
A surprise indeed, Tony. During this meeting, the president brought several Republican senators into the Oval Office to meet with Turkey's leader in a hope to ease some of the hard feelings, because several of these senators have been very critical of Turkey's action, particularly in northern Syria. Now, we're told during this meeting, the leader of Turkey pulled out his iPad and showed a propaganda video depicting the U.S. allies, the Kurds, as terrorists. Apparently, the Turkish leader thought that he could sway some of these senators by showing them this clunky propaganda video. But apparently the senators took turns pushing back on the Turkish leader. Now, the GOP senators, they had a goal in mind, too. They had showed up to this meeting to try to help convince Turkey not to buy Russian military equipment. They hoped that they could work with the president to convince Turkey instead to buy American hardware. But it turns out that...
Did you hear that? Let's go back just a little bit here and try it again.
Not to buy Russian military equipment. They hoped that they could work with the president to convince Turkey instead to buy American hardware. But it turns out that
now these guys would be complete peace with Turkey. Those higher officials in the Ronald McDonald land, they'd be at peace with Turkey if they'll just buy their arms, their machinery, their war time equipment. Then they could have peace with Turkey. Everyone could have peace with America as long as you're in great with the arms dealers and the drugs dealers. Consider that, my friends. And why should I be discriminated against? I gave 3 years of my life as a volunteer trying to keep the Constitution, that they've wiped out, as well as most of all morality. And they won't even give me my pension because I didn't spend one day in a wartime period. Not where you're in at wartime, but during a wartime, I didn't spend one day. But I could have been if these arms dealers were pissed off at somebody. They could have called me back up to 5 years after I was honorably discharged. What do y'all think? This is the sort of thing that true believers have on them all the time. They're catch-22s, I guess they call them. But it's just to see how we're going to react over these things. So I react by bringing out truth concerning what's going on around us. Now, if y'all come up with some neat and interesting news, please share. It'd be great. There's a lot of things that are taking place in the world today, but we know that we've got a little time. The sun has still got to turn 7 times brighter, means 7 times hotter. The moon is supposed to be as bright as the daytime. There's supposed to be these little critters coming out to, to bite those on the butt who are self-righteous, thinking they're doing right, whether they're thieves or murderers or adulterers or sorcerers, liars, whatever it is. They don't have the name of our Father in their forehead. They're going to be stung by these little critters that torment them night and day for 5 months. These things have to take place before our King returns. So we've got at least 5 months, and the sun is getting hotter in some places, and for some reason the sun set where I'm at a place that it never did before tonight. I checked the sun, it's the first time I've ever saw it out any of my windows in this apartment. I don't see the sun, and it set right over there where it normally sets over there, but it was over there that it sat tonight, and I could see it go between apartment buildings as it sat. So in fact, Angela was talking about how the full moon was directly over her house where she's at, and it's never done that before. Something's going on, glitch in the matrix, something, I don't know, but we need to pray for one another. I love y'all. I was glad to bring this stuff forth. Don't it suck to be discriminated against for any reason? I mean, who does man think they are? Don't they know our King? Well, they're going to. They're going to. And you're going to be so respected because you believed him enough to keep his commandments by keeping the give or take 613 laws and learning to put your trust in our King by whatever name you call him, as long as it ain't no Jesus, or Lord or God, because our King is not a Lord or God and he ain't no Jesus. But, if you call him by other names, but you keep the commandments by keeping the give or take 613 laws, the ones that apply to you, maybe you only have 150. Who knows? It's, between you and our Heavenly Father's written word and our King, as to what ones apply to you. But I know as a male, the female laws don't apply to me. So I've got less than 613 that I need to keep, less than it is to drive a car to the store and back to get me into the kingdom. And by putting our trust in whoever it is, whether it's Yeshua or Yehoshua or, Yahshua, which I personally endorse. But we're not going to argue over these things. But if someone brings out a Jesus, we're going to say, hey, please consider 1611, original King James Version. Never had the Jesus in it once. It never had the word Jew or Jews in it. There's no J in the Hebrew, and there certainly wasn't a J when the 1611 King James perversion was first printed. Jesus was invented afterwards. He's a newly risen God, and we're not going to allow the Jesus here. And Amen Ra, we don't want Amen here. Amen Ra is the Egyptian sun god. We need to get in conformity on these things, but like I say, man, I did a search on the name Yahshua. I did a search in the name of Yeshua, and there are millions of different sites to go to. Millions of different things you can click on, where when I first came to know the name of Yahshua, you could only find it in a few books. One included was the New Catholic Encyclopedia. It had the name Jesus there. You looked it up, and it said originally his name was Yahshua. Okay, that's been stricken now. They've censored that out of all Catholic writings. The name of Yahshua and the name of Yahweh have been censored out. No longer allowed in their literature, and that occurred just recently, which is more proof and evidence for me. But I was wanting to show a very close brother of mine. I spoke of him dearly before, and he had brought up that he calls him Yeshua because of the information. And I tried to explain, it's like, look, it's the female rendering of Yahshua. And I said, all my information had been burned up a few times, so I just stopped gathering it. It's been years since I looked into it. And I said I would go ahead and look into it and get back with them. Well, I looked up the name Yeshua, and there's millions of things to look through. So many opinions, so much everything, and I put on Yeshua's name, and there's millions there. I'm like, what in the world? So to really see by the information out there, it's just a war zone. That's all it is. So we need to be very kind and courteous. At the gathering, who knows? It talks about the holy Malachim are going to speak and, teach us at one point even. And they may disclose to us our king's new name. I don't know, but we'll just have to see how it goes. But after we're gathered, I can tell you that we're not going to be calling on amens. We're not going to be calling on the Jesus or the Lord or the God or any El or Baal, which is Lord, or El, which is translated into English as God. There's not going to be anyone praying to angels and things of that sort where we're gathered. And that's going to be for certain, because we're going to be in a unity. And we're not going to discriminate against anybody. So with that, it's just words, food for thought. Keep your eyes open, my brothers and sisters, and let's not get downhearted when the world's just kicking us to the curb. With all that, I do love you. You're in my prayers. Pray for me as well. Don't forget to cry out for judgment. Shalom.